The topic about megapixels keeps coming up. Smartphone manufacturers in particular are constantly trying to outdo one another with the highest megapixel counts, whilst professional cameras tend to advertise with more modest figures, and have done so for years. So what's the truth about megapixels? Does more always mean better, or is there something like good pixels and bad pixels? How does a mirrorless camera measure up against a smartphone? To find out, I'm pitting my 40 megapixel Fuji XT50 against the OPPO X9 Pro and the Insta360 Ace Pro 2, both with 50 megapixels in
The Battle of the Pixels.
Hi, my name's Jay, and I shoot pictures. But before we get started, we need to talk about sensors first. After all, not all sensors are the same. The XT50 has what's known as an APS-C sensor. This is significantly larger than the sensor in the Ace Pro 2 and the OPPO X9 Pro. But what does that mean? Generally speaking, the larger the sensor, the larger each sensor pixel is, and the more light it can capture. This results in less image noise, greater dynamic range, and better low-light performance. Smartphone manufacturers have to compensate for their smaller sensors by using software tricks. When taking photos at night, for example, several images are taken and put together on top of one another. Without these tricks, the smaller sensors could never keep up with the bigger counterparts, but these days the software works wonders here. Nevertheless, the small sensors do have their limits, as they can still only capture less information per pixel than a larger sensor. But just how big are the differences really these days? Let's find out. Let's take a quick look at the three cameras. As the Ace Pro 2 is an action cam, it has a significantly shorter focal length by design. In other words, an ultra-wide angle lens that would be equivalent to around 13mm on a full-frame camera. Accordingly, the OPPO has a wide angles equivalent of 23mm and the Fuji of 19mm. That's about as close as I can get these three cameras together to keep the comparison as fair as possible. So I grabbed the three cameras and set off. All the images are JPEG straight from the camera, no post-processing and no adjustments. For the first shot, I photographed the entrance of a small shopping arcade. You can see at a glance that the Ace Pro 2 with its massive wide-angle lens captures significantly more in the frame, making the subject appear further away. But we are interested in the details, so let's zoom right in. And before anyone complains that I'm zooming in on the same section of the image, even though the Ace Pro 2 shows more as a scene, yes, that's true, but the Ace Pro 2 also has 10 megapixels more than the Fuji, that should balance things out. If we look at the sign and the dark areas on the Ace Pro 2, it's immediately apparent that the image appears significantly less sharp and has more image noise. The palm leaves at the top are also noticeably less detailed. The OPPO delivers a much sharper and smoother image here. This is mainly because the software heavily reduces noise in the image during post-processing. If the software is too aggressive here, the image can look unnatural. But in this case the OPPO does a very good job, partly because it uses AI for image processing. The AI recognizes certain areas of the image and either enhances them or fills in the gaps. This works well when the image contains a lot of detail. When there is little detail, the AI then invents elements that weren't actually present in the image. This is often noticeable in text. Nevertheless, the Fuji's image is, overall, the most detailed and, despite having 10 megapixels less, the sharpest. In the next image we have a fountain. All three images look absolutely presentable at 100%. Here too, of course, the Ace Pro 2 once again has the largest portion of the image. But let's zoom in. The Ace Pro 2 loses the most detail once again. This is evident from the palm trees in the background and also from the 1984 in the fountain. In the dark windows you can even see image noise reappearing. The OPPO is still surprisingly good at this zoom level and has balanced out the image noise well. However, if you look closely at the stone in the foreground, you'll notice that a few details are missing, so AI is at work here again. The 1984 lettering also looks as though it's been sharpened afterwards. Let's zoom in a bit further. Looking at the lettering on the flower boxes, you can see that the Fuji retains the most detail. You can almost still make out the words, whereas the OPPO's AI is already reaching its limits here and starting to make things up. The leaves on the palm trees also look rather like spaghetti on the OPPO. The Ace Pro 2 is practically out of the race at this level. Let's carry on. Here I've taken a photo of a pedestrian zone. Let's have a look at the lettering and the passersby in the pictures. The Ace Pro 2 once again shows the most image noise, yet the lettering is still relatively easy to make out. When it comes to the passersby, however, the results are once again poorer. With the OPPO the image looks clearer and smoother again, but if you look at the passersby and the trees, you'll quickly notice that it's actually just a blur. The AI did its best here, but that was all it could manage. The Fuji clearly has the edge here. Not only can you read the lettering clearly, but the passersby are also still easily recognizable and the image still looks smooth without any image noise. But why is that? Doesn't a higher megapixel count also mean better quality? Definitely not. That's because detail comes into play here. The larger the pixels on the sensor, the more detail can be captured. Imagine it's something like this. Imagine the pixels are buckets. You have 100 buckets and so does your friend. But yours are 10-liter buckets, whereas your friends are only 1-liter buckets. You both have 100 buckets, but you have significantly more water. It's the same with pixels. The Fuji can capture significantly more information than the Ace Pro 2 or the OPPO. But what does that actually mean, all things considered? Does everyone now have to buy a proper camera? No, absolutely not. For 85% of users out there, smartphone cameras or action cameras are perfectly adequate. Most people only look at the photos as a whole and don't zoom in too much on the image. Also, it depends very much on how we view the photos. Most people view their photos on their mobile phone or tablet, so it doesn't really matter and the difference in quality isn't noticeable. Even printing a photo book is perfectly fine for smartphone photos. It's only when you step up to poster size that problems can arise. Modern smartphone cameras and action cams deliver remarkable results for their size, and the vast majority out there will be happy with them. But just know that in extreme conditions and low light scenarios, you are more likely to run into the limits. That's why photographers still use camera equipment. They simply give you more range to work with. Just keep in mind that, as so often in life, size isn't everything.